Have you found actual tools?
Meditation.
Oh, really?
And just a lot of ayahuasca.
Okay.
Just like, at some point, you're just going to have to go to psychedelics.
Hey, Judd. Welcome to One Nightstand.
It's good to be here.
We're so happy to have you. Were you always a big reader?
Well, it comes and goes. I'm a big book buyer.
Okay.
So I'm a hoarder. So I'll buy.
I've learned. I read Comedy Nerd. Yeah.
I'll buy any book because I kind of think that buying a book is as good as reading it, basically. As long as you have it.
To the publishing houses.
Exactly.
Yeah. But growing up, I mean, you're obviously a comedy nerd, but were you reading comedy memoirs, or was it really?
I would have like the Marx Brothers scrapbook, or there'd be like the Saturday Night Live scrapbook. That's why, like, when I was working on this book, Comedy Nerd, it was kind of an homage to what I used to read as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? Like these books about the Marx Brothers, and they'd have pictures and script pages and home photos, and so I loved that kind of thing. And then I would read like Stephen King. I mean, when I was a kid is when Stephen King really took off, like in the late 70s and the early 80s. So, Firestarter and The Dead Zone. And then I got really into this book called Ladies and Gentlemen, Lenny Bruce.
Reading your book made, because I love him and I haven't read it, and I think I'm gonna do that after this.
And that was written by Albert Goldman, and it just really captured the stand-up comedy scene in the late 50s, early 60s, which was fascinating. But also my grandfather was a jazz producer. I used to produce like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. And so it was like a way as a little kid to try to understand my grandfather's world of jazz clubs and comedians opening up for jazz players.
Well, one of the books we're going to talk about today is Born Standing Up, Steve Martin's memoir. How old were you when you read that for the first time around?
Well, I was an adult. That wasn't too long ago. I'm trying to remember.
Because it's set in the 70s, I for some reason thought, it was early 2000s.
Yes, and a lot of people consider that the best book
it's so
about
good.
The life of a comedian and what it takes to be a stand-up comedian. So you see Steve Martin's journey as he figures out his character, much in the same way the new documentary talks about it, but it's just beautifully written and really funny. I mean, it's like candy to comedy people.
Well, also just like hearing about Disney World, Disneyland, at such a like him being there in the beginning. It just it's such a. I mean, I want to see like a biopic of it. I want to like watch that as a little kid play him. Obviously, self-help is another top theme of books that you've picked, but the way he writes about not understanding his panic attacks, I thought was just so beautiful and heartbreaking.
Sure. I used to have panic attacks when I was in my late 20s.
Oh, okay.
Out of the blue, I just started having these panic attacks. I got the first panic attack. I was walking into my cousin's wedding, and all the bridesmaids were singing Bryan Adams' All for Love, the theme to Robin Hood, the one with Kevin Costner. And for some reason, that gave me a panic attack.
Really?
And I couldn't watch the wedding, and I watched it through a small window in the door. And I didn't know what a panic attack was.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you understood what was happening.
I didn't know. I just thought I think that pot's coming back on me or something. I just thought, am I high from 3 days ago? Like, what is going on? And then I figured it out. So it's interesting to hear, about his stuff.
Yeah, I think also just how little knowledge there was, or like it wasn't. I think now people have so much more identification tools. But I started getting panic attacks when I was probably like 5 or 6. So but I think at that point, I mean, I think my mom just could identify it really early on. Like it's such a scary feeling, but I don't remember ever not knowing what was happening to me. Yeah. And I think that would have been so terrifying to just have no idea.
Yeah. You just go like, am I having a heart attack? Am I losing my mind? You know how I knew I was having a panic attack?
How'd you know?
I went to McDonald's and I used to always eat 2 Quarter Pounders and 1 cheeseburger. And I only ate 1 of the 3 hamburgers. And I'm like, something's going on with me because I always finish my meal here.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to find out.
Yeah.
You have an incredible Steve Martin story in Comedy Nerd. I was wondering if you could share it.
Well, I always hate telling this story because I've told it so many times.
Okay.
But basically, I walked up to his house when I was 13 years old and asked for his autograph. And he said no, as he should, because, I would call the cops. Now I really understand. But I sent him a letter demanding an apology, and he sent me an autograph book of Cruel Shoes, his hilarious book of these funny short stories. And in it, he wrote, and this is when I was 13, to Judd, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was speaking to the Judd Apatow.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. He's the greatest guy.
I want to know a little bit more about you at that age, like your psyche at that age? Because it takes a lot of confidence to like jump out of the car and say something. And, you know, you've talked about at length and published the interviews you were doing at that time with all your comedy heroes. Like that does take a lot of gumption to call people up. Like, did you even really realize that? Like the confidence that it took, or that was just like who you were?
I don't know, because I probably wasn't confident anywhere else in life.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, you know, let's say like the early 80s, no one really liked comedy. Like right now, comedy's so gigantic.
Yeah.
But in high school, no one wanted to talk about it. It's not like I had a friend who really wanted to get deep talking about Saturday Night Live and SCTV and Monty Python. But I think I liked that I had a thing.
Yeah.
And so some people were good at sports or whatever. And I thought, oh, I have a thing. No one else is interested. So I think one day I'll get a job from this because I'm one of the only people that wants to get involved. Now, I don't know what I would do if I was a kid now when like it's such a giant thing and so many people are doing it and making TikToks and doing stand-up. But back then it felt like there was only like 100 or 200 people in the world trying to make comedy.
I mean, I guess now you would have had a TikTok show. Like you would have just been like going around and like stopping people on the streets being like, what's your best joke or something.
Oh, I can't imagine, because when I did these long interviews for my high school radio station with, you know, people like Jerry Seinfeld and Jay Leno and Sandra Bernhard, I think in my head I was trying to invent the podcasts.
Yeah.
I really hungered for a long interview with the people that I liked, and they didn't really exist. There weren't places to hear Jerry Seinfeld talk for an hour about being a young comedian. And so I think I was trying to make it happen.
Well, I'm curious to get your thoughts. I feel like, you know, I mean, this is a little inside baseball, but being in media, there's so much conversation around like the state of the celebrity interview in a post TikTok, post having to eat some form of chicken while you get interviewed world. Like, I think Chicken Chop Date is great. And like, I love watching Hot Ones. I like all these things. But I guess as somebody who's been on both sides of it and doing this for so long, like, do you think we're going to keep moving in this more like gimmicky direction, or do you kind of miss the long form? Like, I'm curious your thoughts.
I don't know, because I enjoy it so much. Like I was just listening to my friend Neil Brennan interview Nick Swartzen on his Blocks podcast, and I'm listening to it, and it's like almost 2 hours, and I'm fascinated by Nick telling his story. But there's a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of people talking. Yeah, I have a pretty bottomless appetite for people talking about their personal lives, so I'm an easy fan of most of it, whether or not they're eating hot food or not. I'm generally interested. What's
your podcast diet? What do you listen to every week?
Well, I listen to Mark Maron's podcast. I just did an episode with him.
He only has a few left, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I listen to a lot of the Pod Saves America shows, you know, way too much politics. Yeah. I get really depressed right before I go to bed.
Perfect time
I will listen to like Rich Roll, you know, Finding Mastery, you know, the Jay Shetty. I'll do some self-improvement. I'll do some Esther Perel, you know, I'll do some, Tiger Belly. I'll do the comedy ones. I do too many. What I'm saying is I'm listening to it too much.
What has Esther Perel taught you?
What did she tell me? I don't know. Her accent's too thick. I'm trying to, I know there's information in there, but the accent is throwing me.
Well, self-help, when I first reached out to have you on this series, I was told it's a real favorite genre of yours. Yes. And we are going to talk about today The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Tell me about discovering this one and why you wanted to chat about it.
Well, my friend and writer Ali Rushfield one day said you should read this book. And, you know, I'm a big fan of all self-help. I'm a self-help hoarder. I drown in it so that none of it can really work, right? So I read so much of it that I get confused by what it is. But his is, I guess it's a variation of like Eckhart Tolle type stuff. Yeah. And it's, his basic theory is the same. I think all these self-help books are the same. It's just people explain it better.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, like, I don't read a ton, but as I've been doing this series, people have recommended them. And I feel like a lot of it is like, or maybe this is the parts that I connect with, is like just like shedding negative self-talk and like that voice in your head, like learning to say no to your own inner monologue.
Exactly.
But that might just be what I'm pulling from it.
How do you shut yourself up?
I don't know.
How do you not hear what your brain is trying to do? Because, I mean, from my self-help drowning, it becomes clear that your brain is built to remember the negative.
Yeah.
So that it wants to remember where the bear is so you don't walk into it again. And you don't really remember the good stuff that happens to you as much as the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really be aware of that, or you can get in a negative mindset. And so someone like Michael Singer's just very good at explaining how everything that ever happens to you in your life leads to some sort of defense mechanism adjustment. And then before you know, you have 1,000 adjustments for how you move through the world to feel comfortable. And he just talks about being able to let go of those and let go of all this blocked energy. And it is the same as most of them, but I think he explains it better. And I really like how he talks about it. And he's also all over YouTube. There's 8 billion interviews with him, and those are all pretty great.
He has really good metaphors and analogies. I was listening to him I listened to the book, and he was like talking about if you had a thorn in your arm, you wouldn't like spend your entire life trying to find ways to not bump into things. You would just pull the thorn.
Exactly.
But how do you I mean, literally, like, I don't know. So I'm like, I know I need to, yet I don't know how. Have you found actual tools?
Meditation.
Oh, really?
And just a lot of ayahuasca.
Okay.
At some point, you're just going to have to go to psychedelics.
I'm so bad at psychedelics.
Yeah.
Like because I fight the trip.
I get that. First time I did psychedelics, I was so scared. My teeth started chattering.
How old were you?
I only did it a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I do think I never recommend it to anyone because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
And I think like, who knows? I could like for myself, like I didn't have a bad trip, but I could feel it coming. And if I hadn't learned to meditate and had some sense of how my mind functions, I could have gone off the edge very, very easily.
So your first trip was ayahuasca?
I mean, I had done mushrooms a few times in my life, but mainly at like Frank Sinatra concerts or walk around Vegas.
That's the trip. That's the trips I fight. I've never tried. What was the environment you did ayahuasca in?
Oh, I mean, it was just like one-on-one.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
And it went very well. I saw Jesus. Everything worked out.
That's when you know.
But then you got to hold on to it. Like, you get a feeling of, oh, we should all be kind to each other and love each other. But then it slowly disappears, right? The kind of like I made this movie Funny People with Adam Sandler, and it was all about that when he thought he was going to die, when he was sick, he was so much nicer and more centered and good. And as soon as he knew he was going to be better, he became a jerk again. And that's kind of what those trips are like. Like, you really got to work to keep any wisdom if you got some out of it.
Yeah, there's something you wrote about in the book that I thought was very emblematic of what we're discussing, but also just really honest and beautiful. You were talking about, like, after 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, and like when the guys you were consistently working with all were successful and being pulled in different directions, kind of feeling having like resurfaced feelings of abandonment rather than like pride in what you did. And I really loved that you admitted that. And I feel like that's how the perspective shift of being able to recognize what a special time that was. It feels like exactly what we're talking about. Yeah,
no one talks about that because something in show business that's really painful is it's like summer camp ending all the time.
Yeah.
So you do these projects, sometimes they're years, sometimes they're a few months, and you get very close to people, and then it just ends. And then there's like a moment of like, I wonder if we'll actually stay in touch or talk or not. Mm-hmm. And so that feeling you had when summer camp ended, where your heart would break like the last day or two of summer camp if you went, in a way that's happening in your show business career, but it happens all the time. It might happen 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. And for me, just someone who's sensitive to that, you fall in love with people, like you want to be around people, but also everyone's a circus person. So even the people you're close to, they disappear because they're making movies or TV shows, or they have kids. And so you have to find ways to, keep, the important connections with people, and also understand like these are, experiences to be treasured, but you can't make them last the rest of your life.
I would struggle. I know I would struggle with that. Like being like, I know they're in Vancouver on another shoot, but why aren't they texting me back? I thought we were really friends.
I know. Well, that's what's terrible about all technology, is you can always feel like you're being ignored if you want to. Yeah. Like all through COVID, I was just very aware of who checked in on me in the most neurotic way. And I'd be like, I think that person doesn't care if I'm dead. Like I would have heard from them in 3 years. Like when you check your texts and you text someone like happy birthday and you realize the last time you texted them was last year's happy birthday, and then you can't say happy birthday because then they'll notice that you haven't checked in a year.
You're lucky that you didn't date in a cell phone age. Like imagine the anxiety that like that is the real tyranny. You know, people say like, oh, like dating apps are tough, all that. No, waiting for a text is the worst thing that a person can go through.
I can get neurotic with any person I'm texting.
Yeah, me too.
I can get neurotic with Postmates. Postmates doesn't love me anymore.
Do you respond to, because I like, I have to like stop myself from responding to a text too fast because I just like want, like I'm like so in like type A inbox, like just like quick responder, but like I'm
the opposite.
Oh.
I think there's nothing funnier than when you are like looking at your phone and you get a text to answer it within 1/8 of a second. Like the fastest response that like, I just think it just makes me laugh because I think it's so troubling when somebody responds too quickly.
I try to give myself a beat. I've schedule sent emails to appear that I'm writing like 45 minutes later, but it was sent within 0.8 seconds. I was thinking, reading Untethered Soul in tandem with Comedy Nerd, I was thinking about how self-help feels so hand in hand with mentorship, which is such a big driving force in your creative life. I guess, like, is that something, you know, you've nurtured so many people. Are you always like, I guess, like, are you a big advice giver? Are you like giving these books to people?
You know, I always looked for mentors.
Yeah.
So I think doing interviews with comedians when I was in high school was like a search for mentors. And then, you know, Gary Shandling was someone that I met very early in my career who really consciously helped teach me how to write and taught me about spirituality and Buddhism, and was a very close friend. And I got to know Mike Nichols a little bit near the end of his life. And the great David Milch has been a mentor to me, the guy that created Deadwood and co-created NYPD Blue. So when I work with people on a script, you know, sometimes they haven't written before.
Yeah.
And so just having the conversations about how do we make your script come to life and just talking about the process becomes a form of mentorship. And then some people, you know, then it turns into their dating problems.
I've been immensely fortunate to be mentored by one of your mentees, Miss Lena Dunham, who said you have sent her quite a few self-help books over the years.
Yes, I'm sure,
I don't know that she's read them, but she said that to definitely mention that she could vouch that is something you do.
Yeah, she has them. Yeah, because Gary Shandling gave me this book called A Feather on a Fan.
Okay.
And I think that was the first Buddhist book anybody ever gave me. And then he had another book called Transforming Problems into Happiness, which was basically about when anything happens, good or bad, but bad, you should look at it as a gift because there's something you're going to learn. You're going to learn about your strength, or you're going to learn fortitude, or how to take a hit, or whatever. But I had never heard anything like that. So I was in my early 20s. I wasn't religious at all. My parents never talked about religion. They didn't even say if they were against religion. They just never mentioned it. So hearing any idea like that was a big deal to me and life-changing, because I just thought, bad shit's bad shit, right? Like, this sucks and that's it, and you just complain about it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were lessons in life.
At best, you make a joke about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Another author that you picked to talk about today is Dubus.
Yes.
The collected stories, poor guy has been through a lot
and
really found the art in it in a way that, like, I hadn't read him until you assigned this, and it knocked me on my ass.
Yeah.
Like, he is the pain he is able to distill into these. I read A Father's Story was one of the ones I read. I mean, it's just, he has the ability to break your heart in such sparse and short prose in ways that I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to be thinking about it for a really long time.
Well, there was a period where we were about to have our second child, so I took off a big hunk of time waiting for that to happen and to be around afterwards, where I just was reading a lot.
Yeah.
And then I would ask people, what should I read? And so I would get lists from people, and then I would look on the back of books I liked. You know, I'd look at some like Tobias Wolff book and see who was the blurber. And I would go, those are the friends of that person. And then that's how I would find people, because I just didn't know what was good. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. But I think that those short stories, and there's some kind of short novellas, are incredible. And there's a movie called In the Bedroom based on one of his short stories.
I read that one this morning, and now I hadn't seen the film, so that's another thing.
And the film is excellent. And his son is Andre Dubus the third, who wrote The House of Sand and Fog, and a lot of amazing books.
I did have a moment when I was ordering where I was like, I need to get the right Dubus. Like, I was which, like cross-referencing against each other. I really liked Juliet Naked. I loved it. And I know that's the only thing you've ever adapted, but could you ever see a world where you would want to do a Dubus story or anything like that?
I mean, it's not impossible, but it's just the prose is so beautiful. And I'm always amazed that like within a paragraph, I'm completely deep in a world. I get, I don't know if as I get older, like you ever start a book and you're like, how am I going to remember these 14 names?
Sure.
And you have to like take notes, like who's Jeff? And you just get overwhelmed and you never get past page 6.
Yeah.
For some reason in his work, I never have that feeling. I just like am there. There's nothing to track. And I'm just pulled in having this experience.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, because I thought a lot about, I'm not a parent, but what it would be like to read it as a father. So to be reading it like as you're about to have your second child, like even the last one, A Father's Story, is about his daughter coming to him and she's hit someone with her car and he's going to help her cover it up. Had it been his son, he would have turned him in, but he couldn't stand to see a daughter suffer. Yeah. And it was just, I was like, oh my God.
Well, there's definitely religious aspects to a lot of his stories. A lot of it is about being Catholic and his feelings about his faith in dealing with all these moral and ethical issues in life. Yeah,
I grew up in New England, but I grew up Jewish. So I was like, I don't, I could relate to the scenery, but the religious quandaries, not so much. And thankfully, less of the, less murder and all of that. But
a lot of people are in a pickle in that book.
A lot of people are in a pickle.
Exactly.
And then we have The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I recently did one, we talked about Heart's Invisible Furies a couple weeks ago, and the names were tripping me up. But I hadn't read this either. It's such a beautiful book.
It's such a beautiful book. I mean, I haven't read it in a while, but I always remember it as one of my favorite experiences reading a book that I've ever had. There were other books too that I love. Like there's a great book called A Death in the Family by James Agee.
Okay, I haven't read that either.
And it's he worked for Time magazine as the film critic for a long time, and then he became a very famous screenwriter. He actually famously wrote the article in Time magazine after the atom bomb was dropped about what it might mean for the future, like the big article.
What was his thesis?
It was not going to be good. he certainly understood the ramifications of it, but when he died, they found a novel in that he had been working on called A Death of the Family, and it's about just like a man who gets in a car accident and dies, and then it's through each person in the family's point of view of how they're perceiving this experience, down to a 5-year-old, like a chapter's what the 5-year-old is understanding as everyone comes to the house and what this means. And it's just so beautiful.
I love a family novel.
Yes.
Well, so you said this was an incredible reading experience. What was the, where were you in life? And
I think this was one of the books I was reading that year that I took off time and was just trying to read. And it really changed something about how I wrote, because oddly, my career went way better after I took my reading year.
Yeah, really.
And so I had struggled for a long time, and I don't know what it was, but I think it was just the specificity of describing the human condition, and just through osmosis, paying attention to levels that I hadn't considered before. And then as soon as I was done, I went right into making The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, and and started that run of work. But I do think it reoriented me somehow. I got less dumb.
Do you feel that? Did you notice it at the time, or is it only in retrospect that you feel that shift?
I knew that I needed to do it, and I read a lot of books about how to write a novel, and I thought about trying to write short stories and didn't. But even reading about the process, I think, was helpful for me as a screenwriter.
What were some of those fictional ideas? Like, what were some of those that you abandoned?
That I was trying to write? That's a very good question. I haven't really thought about it in a while. What they were. Usually they kind of come back in the screenplays and in some way.
So they're still thematically in keeping with the work you do.
I always write about the same stuff. You always think you're writing about different things, and then you look at your body of work and you go, oh, it's all kind of in the same area of like, very simple problems, like just the daily struggles that we all deal with, but treating them like they're very, very serious, because they are. But to me, like the less premise, the better.
Yeah.
Just like, what's it like turning 40? What's it like getting sick? Like it, most of my things are about, common experiences, but just putting my weird microscope on it.
Well, they're also usually about underdogs. And I was thinking a lot, like, who are some of your favorite literary underdogs?
Literary underdog. Well, how would you define a literary underdog?
All right, fair.
Like Catcher in the Rye, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like a Holden. I mean, I kind of think like actually this book is pretty much encompassed by like Mick in particular, the girl at the center of it, like growing up in the circumstances she did. I guess like protagonists you related to and the way that as you were reading growing up. Holden's a good example. Yeah,
I mean, like in Heart is a lonely hunter. The lead character is deaf.
Yeah.
He's John Singer. And so I think I've always been interested in people who feel like outcasts in some way. And even in the silliest stuff I've done, I think that's where my heart usually is. Yeah. So the first movie I made was Heavyweights, about a summer camp for overweight kids. And
that's what inspired the question, was thinking about heavyweights. Yeah.
They did Freaks and Geeks, and I was always fascinated by the geeks.
Yeah.
And even The 40-Year-Old Virgin is about, this guy hiding in the storeroom, of a stereo store, trying to avoid people. And so I don't know what it says about me, but I guess as a kid I always thought I wish John Candy was the lead of all these movies.
And then you did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was thinking about, again, going back to the theme of mentorship and context with the lead character. It's John Singer, I believe. And he's deaf. It's wildly different man than you. I mean, he's deaf in the 30s in the South. You're a very verbal guy in Hollywood now. But that thing of people, like the pull you have and the desire to help people.
I always think that, when I try to write and when I'm talking to people about their writing, I always think that all these stories are about like some block someone has. Yeah. And then what would have to happen to them for them to hit bottom enough to take on the block in a real way. Yeah. And then it is like trying to figure out what would a healed version of yourself look like? Like what would it take to get there, to get it? Like how can you get it?
Yeah.
And so I think I relate to that in all these stories because when people write about that just like the torture we all have about like, God, life is so hard and why can't I figure this out? And why aren't I evolving faster? And why am I still suffering with this way of thinking?
I mean, I really do feel on the having listened to the Untethered Soul for a lot of this morning, like truly on the crossroads of like wanting to change, but like not knowing. Yeah. I liked the visualization tactic he had of like thinking about your negative self-talk as like a person who exists in the room with you and like how you would not want to hang out with that person.
Exactly, yeah.
And I was trying to like prescribe that person like a look and like a kind of voice. I almost wanted to like give them like Big Mouth for like the annoying self-talk.
Well, that's why Big Mouth is so great. Yeah. Right? Because it's all the different like voices. The other book I was reading lately is this book. I think it's called No Bad Parts. It's Richard Schwartz, and it's about like internal family systems therapy, which is basically you have these, he calls them protectors. And so like you would try to talk to the part of you that's trying to help you, but is screwing you up.
My therapist is really into that.
Right?
I like it.
Like the part of you that says, don't go to the party because you'll probably get hurt there. And then you try to have a conversation with that part of you that thinks it's protecting you, but is really messing you up. And so I'm always interested in that because I do think that, that's how people behave. Gary Shandling always said everyone like puts on their face, everyone's acting their act. Yeah. And people aren't genuine. It's very rare that people are honest and speak to you directly, that most people are kind of putting on a performance most of the time to get through the day. And that when people drop it, it's a huge deal. Mm-hmm. So like at the Larry Sanders Show, Gary would have these moments where people would finally say what they were feeling for real. And then that would be the big moment. Like in broadcast news, there's like the great moment where Albert Brooks tells Holly Hunter that he loves her. Yeah. And he finally just lets it like spill how much he hates William Hurt and thinks he's the devil. And then he just says, "'Cause I love you." And you go, oh yeah, that's it. It takes like a whole movie for that 1-2 minute moment where you say the thing that is so hard to admit.
That's a perfect movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you share a lot of your self-help learnings with your daughters, and are they interested?
I don't think they're that interested. I try. It's, the one thing I realized probably late in the game of parenting is your kids mainly pick everything up by seeing how you handle your life. Yeah. So you could say what to do all you want, but they basically watch you interact with the world and deal with your problems, and they're going to mirror that in some way.
So Modernizers don't have Untethered Soul queued up on their Audible.
They do not. They do not. No matter how many times I send them a little Instagram story of him talking about it in 30 seconds, they're still disinterested.
I was reading in your By the Book that you did in the New York Times a long time ago about rereading Catcher in the Rye alongside Maude in high school, and how that was like a really like falling back in love with that book, and the One Direction biography, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, Catcher in the Rye, I remember reading it again. They made a documentary about J.D. Salinger, and I was going to do an interview for it. And I just remember reading it as an adult, just loving every word of it, just finding it so hilarious and insightful. And I think as a kid, you're forced to read it, in high school. And I don't think I got it at all in high school. I don't even know if they read it in high school anymore. Yeah,
we read it freshman year, and I remember our English teacher brought in a poem, and it was about the guy wrote, "My girlfriend's in love with Holden Caulfield," and that was the reaction. Like I was just like, Holden is like, oh my, how hot is this anti-hero? Or my dad actually reread it a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, "This is the most depressing thing I've ever read in my entire." He couldn't enjoy it at all.
Really? That's funny.
And I was like, kind of like, "Oh, that's cute. Like you want to go?" And he was like, miserable experience.
That's funny. I had the opposite. I was just laughing. Yeah. There's that moment where she carved he describes that someone carved "fuck you" into like the handrail at school or something. I don't know. I just thought I just love his observations.
He was great.
Where are all the J.D. Salinger books we thought he was writing in the woods? Like, wasn't there that moment where everyone was like, he actually was writing, and we all thought like, oh, in 10 years they'll release something. And so have we basically given up on the idea that anything is coming out ever?
I think so. I went to when they had his archive at the New York Public Library, and that was really cool. If it is, I don't think we're seeing it, but that does remind me, I wanted to ask you about the John Hughes element of the book, that because I'm always like, where's all his stuff after he went away for a while, and you had you got to work on it, but didn't make him super happy, it seemed.
Well, I think when he retired, he retired young, like in his early 60s, and he said he wanted to let other people take the stage, which I understand why people think things like that. And he had some ideas that he had never written, like treatments for movies. So someone came to me and said, "Do you want to help develop this movie," which became Gilbert Taylor, which was written by Chris Brown and Seth Rogen. And so we thought at some point he would talk to us. And they're like, "No, he's not going to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And then, they wrote the script and we made the movie. But he was supposed to have a credit as story by John Hughes. And then he used a pseudonym, which was like Edmund Dante. Yeah. or something. So we never got to talk to him, and we never got to show him the movie or have any discussion with him. But it was nice just trying to be in his head for a little bit. I
feel like if anything comes with J.D. Salinger, all these other books or treatments or whatever, someone works on it, it would be, I mean, obviously he's not around anymore to come up with a pseudonym on his credit, but I can't imagine it would be too different of a situation.
You think someone would know if they were coming? Someone in your book world knows the answer to this.
Who's the executor of the estate? Yes. Also, one of his, ex-girlfriends wrote a pretty scathing book about him. So I think he's like soft
I read that book.
How good?
It was called like Dreamcatcher.
I forget that. I read the Vanity Fair essay she did beforehand.
Yeah. I went deep down that well.
Yeah.
All of that.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask? Because I love Freaks and Geeks like everybody else's. But you talk about in the book, there's a survey that you gave in the writer's room where you like made everybody like talk about like their first humiliation, like their first like crush, drug experience, all these things. So rapid fire. What are some of yours? Like what's that stuff that you were really mining at the time? Yeah,
it's funny because I wrote this thing out like what's the worst drug experience you ever had? What's the most trouble you ever got in with your parents? And made everybody fill it out. And a lot of that did become stories on the show. What were mine? I mean, I don't even think I was that interesting as a kid. When I really look at it, because Paul Feig, who created the show, he wrote 2 books after Freaks and Geeks with even more stories than we had heard in the writer's room.
Yeah.
He just had endless amounts of hilarious stories, humiliating stories, and mine were kind of boring. My parents got divorced when I was a kid, and basically every kid in my school, by the time high school ended, our parents had gotten divorced. And
same. Yeah.
And we would live in a house in like the nice part of town, and then we would move in with one of our parents to the condos across town. So whatever, Hidden Ridge or Fairhaven, and so we were all having a very similar experience. So I tried to put some of that in Freaks and Geeks. So Sam Levine has a funny story where he gets into ventriloquism and he expresses all his rage at his parents' divorce through this puppet. But that's kind of how I felt as a kid, that I needed a skill. So I remember trying to learn how to juggle fire.
Oh, really?
I don't know. There was something about the stress of divorce that made you think like, I need a job. I need to find a way to make money. Maybe I'll work at like kids' parties. And then of course I never learned how to juggle fire, but I had them, and I would never.
How close did you get?
Well, I never lit them.
Okay,
but I was juggling it, but I never worked up the courage to light them.
Where's the pictures of the juggling fire in the book? There's everything else in there. Yeah. You just each day you're like a little bit closer with a lighter fluid.
Yeah, but for the book, I just thought the way I wanted to make it was, I didn't want to write like a straight memoir. I thought this is like sitting with me as I show you my hoard, like everything I saved. So I saved all my autographs from when I was a kid. I saved all like the notes from the studios on the movies.
That part was great.
And so in the essays, it's more like if I was sitting with you, what I would say when I showed you the picture.
You talked about how having the ear of reading and then went on to impact the screenplays you were writing. I'm curious for the effect of the documentaries you've been working on have been, like particularly now this, that's excavating your own life. But like, have you noticed a difference in your writing from like this focus you have?
I think I'm just interested in getting to the truth of things. And so there's a natural progression to just make documentaries. So, when Gary Shandling passed, I made all these short films for his memorial. And then I realized that it was basically a documentary. And so spent the next year and a half putting that together. And then me and my friend Michael Bonfiglio did one about George Carlin. And we were just finishing up one about Mel Brooks.
Right.
That'll be on HBO in January. And I like trying to figure out who these people really are. So underneath, what we've seen on television and on talk shows, what was the experience of their life? Like how truthful can I get about what they learned on their journey and how they experienced it? So it's like it's an excavation. It's an emotional excavation.
In some ways, are you kind of, I guess it feels like you're always searching for that moment where like Al Brooks does say like, I love you. Like that moment, the like the actual like revelatory moment of each person.
Yeah. Like is there something that unlocks, why this person lived the way they lived? Like we all have these traumas. And it's like the Michael Singer stuff that make us adjust in our lives. And for a lot of comedy people, something happened to them and it made them want to succeed, or a lot of people want to show one of their parents they have value.
That's what Steve Martin's whole thing is really like the way he spoke about his relationship with his dad, and just it was like I mean it was really beautiful by the end of the book that he was able to have catharsis with him. But I just like. It felt so. I felt so like he felt so isolated for me through so much of that, and it was so hard to. It was so heartbreaking, but like also I'm really glad that he committed that to the page.
A lot of these creative people have someone like that in their lives, and they're reacting off of it in a positive way or a negative way. It energizes their ambitions, and so that's fun to figure out. So we're working on finishing up Mel Brooks, and we have one coming out about Norm Macdonald next year on Netflix.
I selfishly want to ask you, like, what is the core of Norm you found? Like, what do you think was like some of his like motivations that you found?
Well, one of the things we learned about Norm is he just loved comedy so much. And so for a lot of people, like, you find a skeleton in the closet, find like a defining thing. And with Norm, it's really, he's just this very unique person who's like a really interesting but different thinker who loved making people laugh, to the point where it was more important than anything. And when he was sick later in his life, he didn't tell anyone he was sick because he thought it would ruin it, and then people wouldn't be able to enjoy his comedy if they knew he was in the middle of some sort of struggle. That
concept, I feel like I was thinking about like the Pee Wee Herman documentary, and you talked about how he was contacted you soon before he died, that like wanting to preserve that, I mean, not legacy, but not wanting, when you're committed to the joke, I guess not wanting to let the tragedy enter in. But that's what I love so much about your work is very unafraid to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Rubens also didn't tell, I think, many people that he had cancer, and so we didn't know. And in the last year of his life, he would send videos to people just telling him that he loved them. Yeah. And everyone who got one didn't know that he was giving them to other people. So on my birthday, the birthday before he passed, he sent me this 5-minute video thanking me for making the movie with him, and just kind of telling me all of these incredibly sweet compliments about me, and it made me cry. And then I never watched it again until he died, because it was so powerful and it was so open-hearted. And then when he passed, we all realized, oh, he sent these to everyone. He like took the time in a way to say goodbye and thank you, and to tell people how much he cared about them. And
so beautiful.
Yeah.
What are thematically, I mean, I know you're really heads down with the documentaries and this book, but I guess, we've talked a lot about underdogs and outsiders and kind of like these simplistic concepts that you're really interested in, whether it's like someone gets sick, what happens? Someone gets pregnant, what happens? What's like interesting you most right now? That's a good question. What is interesting me, like, for a topic like that? Well, it's harder when you get older, because then it just becomes all about decay. It's all people falling apart, right? And so, I mean, I have to say I'm pretty fascinated by what's happening with technology and AI, just out of pure terror. So certainly that bubbles up in me of like, what are we going to do? This all sounds terrible. Is that something you'd want to write about? Probably. Really? Just because it just sounds like the worst case scenario of everything. And so how people manage it and handle it, I think it's going to be a big topic for a lot of art, I'm sure. Did you read, this is not quite like AI and all that, but did you read that New York Magazine story yesterday about the cryptocurrency kidnapping? Have you read about any? There was these two guys, and they, I mean, because it's different than a bank. Like, you can, like, if you take someone's blockchain or whatever, like, it's yours. Like, there's no, if you know the code. Yeah, and so they kidnapped him, was torturing someone into giving them it over. And that's why I have no crypto. I know there's torture coming. Yeah, you're just like, I mean, it's reason enough not to pursue that line of finances. You got to waterboard me to get my number, to steal all my money, and I can't get it back. Anything that's like in a format where like people can steal from you and you can't get it back and no one knows who stole it, doesn't seem solid to me. Does not seem solid. Absolutely does not. But what aspects, I guess, of technology are most inspire something in you creatively? Well, most of it doesn't inspire me. Most of it just makes you want to go full vinyl and analog. It just makes you want to buy an old Led Zeppelin record and listen to the vinyl. I'd love to step out of all technology. And it does instantly turn you into an old man who's like, I hate Elvis Presley for shaking his hips. Like, you do realize that this happened when radio happened and television happened. And I think it's a natural instinct to go, I kind of don't want to be a part of this. Like when your grandparents are like, I'm not going to get a cell phone. I feel that about AI and the singularity. I don't want to like manage what all this means. It makes me kind of want to get more
human. I don't want to learn it all. I'd like to to me, what's amazing is whatever, how a book makes you feel, or how, like the hair stands up on your neck when you hear a song. And I'm pretty sure all that technology will never be able to do that. But because most things in culture are really bad, it can replace all of that, right?
Yeah.
So if you go only like 5% of anything, of any book is good, and then there's a lot of people working really hard to write everything that isn't good, and now a computer is going to write all the mediocre stuff.
Working on this, you got to like, so it feels so tactile. I mean, you like have like all this like ephemera from your life that's like physical and you can hold. Like, where did you keep everything and how did you organize it as you were writing and piecing everything together? Like, what was that experience
Well,
like?
I had about 400,000 photos in my photo thing. And so the first thing I did was me and all my assistants, we just tried to categorize them. Like, let's find every single photo from Pineapple Express, every piece of paper on it, let's scan. And we created categories for every project I ever worked on, and then just whatever, everything from college, everything from when I first started doing stand-up. And that took about a year to just sort through, and I had a lot of stuff in storage. I was a pack rat from the time I was like 10.
Okay.
There's a picture in there of my closet from when I was 10 where you could see I already have like photo albums with my autographs and things like that. And then I basically put all the photos in order. And then once that was done, I started writing essays and captions for it. So that took like another year to do that.
Where did this all live? Like in your office, or like where? Like is it spread out on tables? Are they in books? Like how? Like actually, like physically, what did it look like?
Well, I would bring them in, scan, and then have way too many boxes, and I have way too many storage facilities.
How many?
Like the amount of money I'm paying for storage facilities. And so now the question is, now that it's in the book, can I throw all of it out? Because it's in the book. It sounds
like, I think like if we were, Michael Singer would say yes.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like an art of letting all that go. But I have a feeling the answer is no for you.
Because Marie Kondo, who said to throw your stuff out,
then
wrote a book.
Back, right?
She took it back and said, maybe I was wrong once she had kids or something.
Okay.
And so I was so proud that I had everything. I'm like, do I have Roseanne and Tom's wedding invitation? I do, And so I was so excited when I would like find these things. But now I really should throw everything out.
It seems like you are someone who has like a really solid memory. Like to even like remember that you would maybe have Roseanne's wedding invite, but like did it jog a lot of things for you that you like didn't know you had? Or
I only have a good memory for stupid things. I don't have any good memory for like what's important in life, but I will like remember like, someone who was a supporting character on The Honeymooners or something.
Of course.
But yeah, I did remember stuff, but I actually don't have a great memory. I feel like I'm kind of stressed and my memories kind of disappear quick, but I certainly had enough memories to fill out the book.
Yeah, 500.
But I'm not one of those people that remember like conversations. Like if I like see Owen Wilson, he'll literally talk about a conversation we had in 1998 and quote me directly. And sometimes I'm like, I want to sit with Owen for like 2 hours and record it because he remembers like that era in our lives better than I do.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
I mean, can you do like
that's a documentary.
That's I mean, just the fact that like he has that ability is interesting. I mean, let's do one on the Wilson. I mean, you on the Wilson brothers.
Yeah, right.
And
I'd watch that doc. What Owen remembers.
And apparently, I saw on Twitter recently the third brother is sneakily really hot too. That's what they were saying. That's what Twitter says.
All the brothers. Andrew, that's what you're saying.
I think they were, Twitter was like, wait, why is the third Wilson brother so slept on?
Not anymore.
You gave me a lot to think about with Untethered Soul, but I'm going to go deeper into Dubus because I'm like really into it now.
Oh my God, they're all good too. Like every single one.
Reading about his life was like just.
Well, there's 2 books that are just essays. One's called like Meditations from a Movable Chair or something, and the other one's called like Broken Blood Vessels. Those are as good or better than the.
And the son and the son stuff is good.
The son stuff's amazing.
Exactly. I was seeing like Townie, his memoir, growing up in I had an English teacher from Haverhill, and like he always talked about it. So weirdly, that feels like a very mythic place for me.
Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was amazing.
Okay.
Or is there anything else you want to cover before we
go? Thank you for reading the book. I haven't talked to almost anyone who's read the book.
I mean, we can keep. I mean, I can keep talking about the book.
Yeah.